Good evening. Everybody ready? So on behalf of the Harvard Radcliffe Institute, I'd like to welcome you, both our audience in person here at the Knaufel Center, as well as those of you who are joining us online, to the first part of the Institute's Gender Conference for 2022, focusing this year on gender and comedy. My name is Hisa Kuriyama, probably the unfunniest professor on the Harvard faculty. But I have the great pleasure of introducing this evening's event. We really have a fantastic lineup of people for you, so look forward to it. But before getting to them, I'd first like to acknowledge the generosity of the Parham Moorhead Grayson and Bruns Grayson Dean's Leadership Fund for Academic Ventures, whose support has made this event possible. I'd also like to acknowledge the alumni of the Harvard Lampoon, who first proposed the theme of this conference to us. We're delighted that the program coincides with the celebration of 50 years of women at the Lampoon. Yay. Good. You're a good audience. You're a good audience. And finally, I'd like to thank you all for joining us this evening. After a long COVID isolation, the irreplaceable pleasure of gathering together in person is one that none of us, I think now, takes for granted. At the same time, this isolation has enhanced our awareness of how technology can enable audiences in distant places to join local events in real time. So we're happy to welcome both our in-person and online participants to laugh together, to think together, in an evening that we hope will be at once enjoyable and thought-provoking. So the event this evening is called "To Laugh Is Your Only Job." I think this is, as I was thinking about it, it's probably the only conference in which the announcement is not about what the speaker is going to say, but what the audience is how the audience is supposed to react. So just to remind you, if you could all repeat after me, "To laugh is my only job." Now you're all set. Just remind them, just gesture and everybody will remember. So I lied. Actually, my colleague Bob Smith is actually less funny than me. So this is the first part of the conference. The conference will continue tomorrow morning in what is certain to be a stimulating series of discussions engaging academics, comedians, and writers, and exploring such issues as why the theme of gender and comedy merits special attention today, and the ways in which this theme is inseparably entwined with other issues such as race, class, and sexuality. And so if you have time, I very much encourage you to join us tomorrow as well. Our program tonight is the performance-centered part of the conference, and we have really a special treat for you. It's a program that spotlights the talents of our students. The program will be emceed by two wonderful Harvard undergraduates, Charlotte Daniels and Clara Orrange, and we're really grateful to them for their partnership in developing the event. The comedians who are performing are all undergraduates and drawn from two organizations. One is the Harvard College Stand-Up Comics Society, a community of student stand-up comics who seek to foster an exclusive space to learn and develop comedy on campus. The other is the Harvard Undergraduate Feminist Comedy Collective, which is concerned with helping more women, LGBTQ, and nonbinary comics, that is, underrepresented and unrepresented communities in the undergraduate comedy scene, to develop their comedic potential, to workshop material, and to undertake projects on campus. So following their sets, we'll have a panel discussion with two of the student comedians and two additional guests. The discussion will include questions submitted from the audience. And so we encourage those of us here tonight, both those here in person and also those of you watching online, to submit questions at any time using the Slido link that's provided right here on the screen and in the chat feature of the Zoom webinar. So, without further ado, two wonderfully smart and humorous students, Charlotte Daniels and Claire Orrange. Please give them a warm round.
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
I'm Charlotte Daniels.
Hi, Charlotte. And I'm Claire Orrange.
And we are your hosts for tonight. Thank you so much for inviting us to this comedy conference. If there's one thing that makes comedy fun, it's intellectualizing it.
So we're here representing two different comedy groups on campus, the Stand-Up Comic Society and the Feminist Comedy Collective.
We're in both organizations, but I'll talk about HC Sucks and you can talk about FCC. So the Harvard College Stand-Up Comic Society is a very inclusive group. I know it was said exclusive, but that was probably a slip. Anyway, we are a very inclusive group. Everyone can join the organization. Many organizations on campus are like very closed, or you have to comp it, which means like interview or like audition in some way to get into the organization. And HE Sucks allows everyone. You can come anytime, and it's a very warm and inclusive community.
And the Feminist Comedy Collective is actually a little bit more of a recent group on campus. A lot of, I think, comedy spaces can be a bit inaccessible to individuals who aren't, just your sort of standard male performer. So the Feminist Comedy Collective sort of was seeking to rectify those inaccessibility issues. So it's kind of just a space for women, non-binary, and femme comics to workshop material or really do anything sort of interdisciplinarily. We're really happy that Radcliffe has partnered with us and brought us here today, and I think we have a great lineup for you guys.
Yeah, we're very excited.
But before we get to the performers, I feel that we need to establish our own comedic merits as hosts. So,
Thank you.
You're too kind. We actually haven't done it yet, but
Claire, take it away.
Thank you. Okay.
We're doing it individually. Okay.
Hey everyone. What's the deal with airline food, right? Just kidding. So I have an interactive component. I want to poll the audience. How many of you can see me right now? Okay, so like most of you. Happy Trans Day of Visibility. I'm trans. Thank you. You're too kind. So I am indeed trans, and it's sort of interesting because I think cis people sort of have this misconception that they have to kind of walk on eggshells around me or kind of monitor what they say, and I just really want to sort of dispel that notion. There's really only kind of one thing I want you guys to keep in mind, and that's please don't ask me for a tampon. I'm actually trans for the perks, right? Like, I like the military ban. I'm not meant to be out there. I don't think the armed forces needs me. I actually was a bit upset when Biden reversed it, mostly because I don't think I'd look good in camo. Especially not on this day of visibility, am I right? No, but thank you. In addition to all that sort of stuff, I'm what they call a they, she. I take they, them pronouns and also she, her pronouns. And for me, it's sort of interesting because I'll have they, them days and also she, her days. Like on my they, them days, it's a lot of, button-up shirts and Birkenstocks and sourdough starter and stuff. And then on my she, her days, I'm usually just pretty horny. Which actually brings me to an perhaps topical point of my set. It can be tricky when you're a very femme-presenting comic like me, and I think I tend to go on stages and I sort of notice that I think the audience is expecting a certain kind of set that usually tends to be pretty hypersexual in nature, which I think is something a lot of female comics struggle with. I find that I oftentimes only feel like I'll make something funny if I relate it to a sexual anecdote, which reminds me of this time I was sleeping with this boy. And I'm just kidding. I don't have a punchline for you guys with that one. Yeah, okay, I guess I'll just end by saying that I've been on a bit of a journey of self-discovery recently. I've discovered two sort of new things about myself. The first being that I am bi. You guys can clap. Now I'm going to cut it off. The second being that I'm biphobic. and that's my set. I'd like to welcome Charlotte back onto the stage. You guys are a great crowd, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, a little bit about me. I failed the driver's test 11 times. Thank you. I'm aware that there's a stereotype that women are bad drivers, but I'm repairing the glass ceiling. The other day I got a DUI. I'm sorry, wait. I got an IUD the other day, sorry. And an IUD is like a little hormonal fishing hook that's like rammed up your body, and it really hurts, and it's like genuinely terrible. It messes up your emotions. So if you guys are ever on like Tinder and you see a guy holding up a fish by the hook, like have a little empathy. That fish just went through an invasive medical procedure. That fish is going through hormonal hell right now and taking Advil 4 times a day, like bleeding straight for 2 weeks. That fish, it feels like it's having a little fish baby every single morning, okay? That fish like hates its goddamn body. That fish looks in the mirror every day and thinks, why me? That fish thinks about dyeing her hair like every day, but her mom is like, you won't get a job. For every $1 that man makes, that fish is making 82 cents. Thank you. That fish knows that if it wants a promotion at fish work, it's gonna have to show a little fish cleavage, and it doesn't want to. Her gills, her choice. So I went to an all-girls high school, much like Radcliffe, but like young. And I started the school knowing 0 gay women. My brother joked about like, I'm gonna graduate gay. And I would yell, no, like I like men. And so he was wrong though, like claps, no, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. I didn't graduate gay. I didn't figure it out until college. I was much too sexually repressed. So I graduated in a class that was 88% LGBTQ, which is crazy. And we counted it up the day before graduation. And we had a graduation party, but there was not like, it wasn't normal. There was not a keg in sight. It was just a beautiful picnic with wine and fresh berries. And then we had a huge orgy after. It was amazing. As a straight woman at the time, I didn't, participate, but I simply watched and I had a great time. Should have known. I can't believe I didn't know that everyone in my school was gay, because we all had to do lifeguard training, and once we got to the like CPR part of it, people liked it way too much. Like one of us would be pretending to drown and the other one would do CPR like right on her nipple. Like mouth to mouth was a lot more tongue than mouth. And in every CPR case, we'd strip the clothes off to try to find the heartbeat, and my teacher would be yelling, you don't have to do that. You don't have to, no, we're not supposed to do that. At a normal high school, there's like arts and crafts. At my school, there's just scissoring. At a normal high school, a speaker would come and say, you can do anything if you set your mind to it. At my high school, a speaker would come and say, you can do most things, but there's a 2/3 chance you'll get sexually assaulted. Shouldn't have ended on that joke. Thank you so much. Sorry. Anyway, I'd like to, thank you. I'd like to welcome up our first actual speaker of the night, one of my dearest friends who's gonna blow your socks off, Claire Yu.
Oh my gosh, what an intro. Blow your socks off. So your shoes better already be off, because I'm not responsible for that part. Hi, I'm Claire. I'm so happy to be performing for you all at the Radcliffe Gender and Comedy Conference. It's so exciting. Hi to everyone watching online. Make some noise if you're online. Yeah, I'm bad at crowd work. Yesterday, Charlotte and Claire told me that this is also going to be put on YouTube, and that my name's going to be attached to it, and that it's going to follow me for the rest of my life, and that it's going to be it's in history. This is what I'm remembered for. And to that, I have to say, well-behaved women rarely make history. So, let's get started with some material that will ruin my job prospects forever. No, I'm kidding. We'll build up to it. When I was in high school, we had a yearbook, pretty normal, and we had superlatives, like senior superlatives, and we had a look-alike competition, a celebrity look-alike competition, which seems really nice. And it was really nice. My friend got nominated for a look-alike with Angelina Jolie, and my other friend got Brad Pitt, and I got, you guessed it, brown egg. There's a photo of me in my yearbook, and next to it is a photo of a brown egg. And my friend recently told me, oh, at least you didn't get white egg. Yeah, that just wouldn't be fucking accurate. I also won best hair for an egg. Just sad. Let's see. Speaking of what I look like, my other friend recently told me that it's a miracle I don't get robbed more because I look like a child. But then I said, no. This look is the perfect defense, because why would you ever want to rob a child? What could I possibly have on me? A fucking binky? A fucking sandwich with the fucking crust cut off? A fucking diaper? Oh, a fucking shit-filled diaper? Oh, you want to change my soiled-ass diaper for me, Mr. Robber? Oh, you want my wallet? It's in my diaper. And don't come too close, or else I'm gonna fill it with shit. And that's all the times I'm gonna swear in this set. I just had to get them all out at once. No, but it's true. I do look like a child, and I look relatively nice, which is very disarming for most people. But I think you all should be very afraid of me. Because I recently realized that if I ever had to kill someone, God forbid, but if I had to, I would do it like how right before you put down your dog, you give it the best day of, their life. So I give you the best day of your life. So women should be most afraid of me when we're in bed together. And men should be most afraid of me when I listen to them talk for more than 5 minutes uninterrupted. To the two men performing here tonight, sit, roll over, and I'll see you on the other side. I look so much like a child that the other day I opened my Photos app, and I searched. You could search up words, and they label photos. The algorithm label photos in your phone now. Crazy. But I looked up the word baby, and what came up was hundreds of pictures of me. The Apple photo recognition algorithm thinks that I am a baby. And at first I was really offended, but then it was kind of accurate because I looked up the word slut, and it returned hundreds of photos of my boobs. And then I looked up the word fat, and it showed hundreds of pictures of my ass. And I looked up the word sexy, and it showed, you guessed it, my good personality and intellect. Switching gears, every queer person today is named Claire. You just met two of us. I mean, it's 2 for 2. And it's so awkward when you're on Tinder, as a Claire, you're on Tinder, and you match with someone else also named Claire, because then it's like, wait, are we related? Cool. I'll end on this. I am Korean American. There was a little too much delay. Usually it's like immediate, but I am Korean American. And it's really fun when I was a kid and I used to tell people that, they said, oh, you're Korean, North or South? And I'd always say, oh my gosh, South. I'm Southern, I'm as Southern as they come. I was like a walking ad for Texas. And I would always tell them, and I recently realized that this is a huge double standard. It's a pretty kind of messed up question to ask a kid. So I've been reclaiming this, and now I go up to every red, white, and blue-blooded American I see, and I say, oh, you're a 5th generation American, North or South? And okay, last thing, on the note of being Korean, in Korean culture, your first birthday is very important, and it's called Tor. And on your first birthday, as the baby, you play this game called Torjabi, which is when you're the baby and you're put in front of all these objects, and whatever object you crawl towards symbolizes what you're going to accomplish in the future. So you crawl towards a book, you're going to be smart. You crawl towards the money, you're going to be rich. You crawl towards a stethoscope, you're going to be a doctor. We're not creative people, okay? But we only put out positive items, and if I ever have a kid, I want a whole range of items, just to kind of suss it out. So I'd have a gun, to see if there'll be a mass murderer. I'd have a knife, to see if there'll be a mass murderer, but way less efficient. I'd have a butter knife. I'd have a butter knife to see if they fucking love butter for some reason. And I'd have handcuffs to see if they'll be kinky, like mommy. And whenever I do this bit, people come up after me after the show and ask me, oh, what'd you get? What'd you crawl towards? Obviously a brown egg. Thank you so much.
That was incredible. Everyone give it up again for Claire. So if you saw that performance and you're thinking, hey, I want to do that, and I'm a Harvard undergrad, come find us after the show, because we'll hook you up with institutions. This next performer is a personal friend of mine, a fellow Courier House individual. I'd like to welcome to the stage Nadine Jackson.
Is this making any? Okay, cool. Hello, I'm Nadine, here at the Knoffel Center with K. And I'm feeling kind of badass today, Like, I just feeling kind of badass. Just am. I think I might start a coin collection. That's how badass I'm feeling. Because a coin collection is the most badass thing of all. It means, oh, I care about money a lot, but I also don't care about money at all. Yeah. You with the face. What's the most badass thing you've ever done? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I'll say what the most badass thing I've ever done is this morning I was going into my dorm. I saw the sign that said, masks are now optional. However, please consider masking. You know what I did? I did not consider for 1 second before putting my mask on. That's right. That sign cannot control my mind. Yeah. I see a lot of fresh faces here today. A lot of new faces. Have you guys been moisturizing? Yeah, I heard moisturizing is supposed to help you, decrease signs of aging. When I was 8 years old, I used to sit in front of the TV and I'd see ads for anti-aging cream, and they'd say, oh, it'll make you look 10 years younger. There are few things more terrifying to an 8-year-old than looking 10 years younger. So, since a lot of you guys are new, I thought I'd give you all my backstory. And by backstory, I mean scoliosis. Yeah, so when I was 16, I went to the doctor, and he said I have scoliosis. And that's when your spine curves sideways. And I always thought it was okay not to be straight, but apparently not, because I had to get surgery. So, yeah, they said I was going to have to get surgery. They were going to open my back and put 2 metal rods in there to keep my spine from curving again. And that worried me for 2 reasons. The first one was metal rods in my back. What about rust? And the second was that I wouldn't fit society's beauty standards, you know? I mean, I guess the media, you know, gives you all kinds of ideas about what a woman should look like. And at the time, I believed that real women have curves. I thought, like, they can't get rid of the S-curve in my back, so, but I had to get the surgery, and I can tell you, I'm still gorgeous, okay? I'm still sexy. Yeah. Baby got back. Yeah. You know, as a woman, I think it's kind of hard for me to align myself with the label of feminist, because I agree with a lot of the things feminists say, but sometimes they can be kind of homophobic. Like, oh, I hate the male gaze. What did the gays ever do to you? Yeah. I think maybe we should pivot to something else, like, you know, oh, I hate the male dentist. Like, I'm tired of all the emotional abuse. They'll be like, oh, you haven't been brushing your teeth hard enough. And then they'll go at your teeth with a metal pick. That's like if you went to the doctor and they were like, you should lose some weight, and then they cut your arm off. How was I supposed to compete with that? Am I supposed to be doing this at home? Yeah, I don't know. Was that risky? I feel like maybe, yeah, the comedy world can be a little dangerous, so I thought, maybe I should put out a preemptive apology video just in case I accidentally say something that offends someone, or maybe accidentally sexually assault someone or lie about it for 5 or 6 years. So I thought, yeah, I'd put out this apology video. Okay. I never thought I'd have to make this video. Usually, I go on stage and we laugh and we have fun, but we can't do that today. It's a dark day. Some may even call it night. And it's hard because I've done things that hurt people, and it's hard when you do things that hurt people, but you don't know what those things are yet. But I have some guesses. So I'd like to apologize to the Claires of the world, the Quaker Oats Company, the Knoffel Center, the Knoffel Center. Yeah. It's hard, you know? And the things I have said, or the things I will say, were, have been, or will be taken out of context. Am I a human? Am I a monster? Am I an animal? A vegetable? A mineral? I don't know. But what I do know is I'm wearing the female form of guy liner, and I am a badass. That's all that matters. Thank you.
That was amazing. If I had to watch that apology video, you'd be forgiven. It's all over. You're good. You're set for life. Our next comic is also one of my very close best friends. I met him in like freshman year, the first stand-up meeting there was. So we've come a long way. Give it up for Dylan Roy.
I have only had a gender crisis once. It was a Wednesday night, long day of being a he/him. I get in my comfy race car he series covers. I'm about to fall asleep, and then suddenly I'm like, am I a man? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, am I a man? And I'm like, probably. Probably like 90%, maybe 70%. Then I'm like, am I a man? And I'm like, I don't know. And then so I'm like, okay, well, what would make me a man? Okay, well, I have unchecked confidence when it comes to playing foosball. Sure. I have the hubris as a man to perform at a gender conference? Clearly. And sometimes I burn down buildings when my sports team loses. Okay. That's just Tuesday. Guilty. But then I was like, no, other genders can do and have those things. And then I'm like, okay, well, geez, then what the fuck is gender? And then I'm like, oh, geez, okay, I can't do this. I have a 9 a.m. class tomorrow. I gotta go to bed. I'm just gonna stick with he, him, and call it a night. And then I'm like, wait a minute. Everyone has this kind of realization, right? Everyone has a gender crisis at least one part of their life, right? That's totally a thing everyone has, right? Clap if you agree. That's a thing that everybody... So I remain he, him. I can't think for myself. I'm only gay because my boyfriend tells me I should be. But there was a time when I was younger when I would watch gay porn and convince myself that I was straight. I'd be like, volume down, brightness down, airplane mode on, and I'd be like, it's good to triple check I don't like this. You can never be too sure. I'm watching a guy takes off his shirt, he has beautiful abs, and I'm like, whoa, boring. Like, why would I even like... After I'm like, whew, thank God I am straight. Time to listen to some Lady Gaga and cool off. It's hard to be in a gay relationship, though. It's hard because people always ask, who wears the pants? And never, who wears the cut-off booty jorts? Someone's gotta do it. Maybe both. It's also bad when they ask, who's the man, who's the woman? Because I'm like, I'm a man. Wait a minute. But it's also hard to be gay in general, because if I'm with a group of my friends and they're like, oh, this man's disgusting, and I'm like, oh, man. But then I'll see like any man that's like above 5'8" with nice hair and a pulse and be like, oh, man, boy, oy, 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 oy. It's embarrassing. Like, I sort of understand homophobes at this point. Like, maybe I do deserve better. Or maybe I don't deserve better. Anyways, I do have a romantic partner, though. My romantic partner goes by the pronouns he, they. But when people ask me about their sexuality, I usually just say he, gay. Gets the message across pretty well. I feel like men are always trying to prove something. Always trying to prove something. I was walking in CVS the other day. I passed the condom section. I was trying to get toothpaste. And I saw the condoms. They were crazy. The brands, they were like Magnum, XL, Super Supreme, Girth Max. And I'm like, but there was no medium. There's no condom for your average Joe. And it's like if you went to a coffee place and you're like, hey, can I get a coffee? And they're like, yeah, what size? And you're like, Extreme Girth Max, Hypersex, Extreme, with extra cream, please. I'm gonna end on some impressions because everyone loves those historically. So here's an impression of Martin Luther King Jr. if you were a stand-up comedian. What's the deal with racial inequality? So the next one requires a bit of setup. So we all know Isaac Newton, right? Father of modern physics, okay? Do you think when he came up with his 3 little rules, he knew they were gonna become the laws of physics? Or do you think he was like, oh shit, my 3 little rules project is due tonight. Okay, well, let's just do it. What happens to an object in motion? Nothing? And he was right. Thank you, everybody. That's all.
Everyone give it up for Dylan one more time. This next stand-up, another friend of mine, another fellow Courier House member, I'd like to welcome to the stage Mireya Sánchez-Maes.
Did you know that sperm banks pay extra money for Harvard donors? That's crazy! Oh my God, the logic goes like this. People think, like, parents want the best genes for their kids, and some people think that going to Harvard means that you've demonstrated that you have some desirable trait. But, like, imagine Zach from, like, your intro Spanish class. Can you do that? We all know Zach, right? He's really into salmon-colored khakis. He doesn't play sports, but he gets crunk with the lacrosse team. He puts feminist on his Tinder, but we know why. Imagine Zach really taking him in and thinking, I want this for my son. No! No, those poor babies are gonna come out and start networking with their doctor. My goodness. It's terrifying. Speaking of babies, my mom is afraid that I'll never have any. And that's because I'm single, and I'm 19, and I'm a woman. Which, as far as my mom is concerned, means I have like a tight 6 years before my femininity expires. Which obviously isn't true. Like, there's at least 9, right? But she's really concerned about this. The other day I called her on the phone because I crashed my bike. I was like, Mom, I'm in the ER, I'm okay, but I'm really nervous and scared and lonely. And she's like, oh no. So have you met anyone? Mom, what? Shameless. My mom is worried that I'll never find a partner, and my grandma is worried that I have too many. Last month, I was sick, so I called my grandma. I was like, Grandma, I feel so nauseous. I think I have food poisoning. And she's like, oh no, hijita. Are you pregnant? I'm like, what? Porque once you're pregnant, you can't have more sex. It's bad for the baby. So a little bit about myself. I'm Mexican-American. or Latina, or Hispanic, or hungry. Like, whichever term you prefer is fine, But this surprises people a lot when I tell them. And I guess probably because of how I look, I get it. Not a lot of people know that Latinas can wear glasses, but we do. A lot of us do. What else? I'm an English major. Yeah, and every time I tell... Thank you. I forgot that I'm at Radcliffe. Like, people major in English here. But when I tell people that, there's always one person who thinks they're so funny, and they're like, English major? And I bet you're minoring in unemployment, huh? And I'm like, Grandma, no, that's mean. That's mean. But I have this theory that Harvard English professors have the dirtiest minds, because to them, everything is a symbol for sex. It's true. On the first day of class, my class is reading Dracula right now, and the teacher was like, what is this book about? And my classmate's like, Dracula? And she's like, wrong, Zach. Everything in the world is about sex, except sex, which is about power. Now, I'm a low-income Latina who does stand-up comedy, so I don't really have either of those things. But about the book, she was totally right. Who's ready for a little lesson? You're at Harvard. Okay. Here I have my copy of Dracula. Open to any page, literally read a noun, and you'll see, look. Jonathan entered. Yeah, he did. That was too easy, though. Let's do another one. Okay. I used my wedding ring to tear the seal. They're not talking about letters. Let's do one more, though. Okay. Ooh. He pierced her maidenship, liquid dripping on the conquered bow. Yeah, so that one's actually about capitalism, but all the rest, yes. Now, I know that this conference is about gender, it's about women in comedy, and so I just want to take the rest of my time, to sort of talk about what it actually means to be a Latina in comedy, because it's really hard, and I think it's important.
But you have to stop. You have to stop.
What?
It's Ian's turn now.
Wait, what? Really?
You have to. You've run out of time. Ian.
It's Ian's turn, everyone. That about sums it up. Thank you. I've been a woman in comedy.
Give it up for Mireya. Okay. And next we have the infamous Ian Kimbell. Take it away.
The infamous Ian Kimbell at your service. So this is the portion of the Gender and Comedy Conference where you get to hear what I have to say. So if you need to go to the bathroom, maybe now would be a good time. But all right, so let's just start off with the multimedia part of our presentation. What is this? I mean, are people familiar with this restaurant chain, the so-called restaurant chain? Okay, how am I supposed to say this? right? Because I can't go full-on French. Every time that I talk to someone, I can't say, oh, you want to go to Subway or Tasty Burger or Au Bon Pain? It doesn't work. But I can't go the alternative. I can't say, hey, you want to go to Au Bon Pain? Just seems kind of disrespectful to French culture. But, I mean, we've been able to figure this thing out before. I mean, we've decided that if you say croissant instead of croissant in casual conversation, you got to relax. But... I mean, there's so many more of these French restaurant chains we have to go over this for. Au Bon Pain, Pret à Manger, Le Pain Quotidien, Denny's. I mean, I don't know. I think we have to figure that out. But okay, so now we've laughed a little bit. You know, I made a joke. Ian made a joke. Haha. But I think maybe it's time we really talk about what I wanted to talk about today. And so, first off, I just want to say that at this point in my life, I like yogurt more than I ever have. Can we maybe get a little round of applause for yogurt? I mean, it's good stuff. And number two, I am on the go more often than I've ever been. So, with this in mind, why is it that I haven't seen a single tube of Go-Gurt since 2011? I mean, why is Go-Gurt, this genius invention that combines the richness of yogurt with the convenience of a tube, marketed not toward me, a young professional, but to children? I mean, kids do not need this. Kids are not in a hurry, and they are most certainly not on the go. You know, I've never seen a kid say to somebody, you know what, let me see if I can squeeze that into my G-Cal. I've never seen a kid say, you know what, let me check my schedule, it's pretty busy. At 2:45, I have to ride my bike. At 2:46, I have to fall off my bike and scrape my knee. At 2:47, I have to look at the scrape on my knee. And at 2:48, I have to cry about the scrape on my knee. I mean, kids have to remember one day a year, and that's their own birthday. And scratch that, they don't even have to remember that. The cake is labeled, okay? So, I mean, I could keep going about Go-Gurt all day, and I know you want me to. But I do have other material. Have you ever seen one of those signs that says, "Lost dog, do not chase"? Who wrote that? The dog? Back to Go-Gurt just for a second. So, I mean, I just don't get why it's mature for something to not be convenient. I mean, do I have to prove I'm an adult by carrying around my own milk so I can culture it on the spot? I mean, do I have to walk around with a cow so I can get it right from the source every time? And you may be thinking, Ian, number one, love the Go-Gurt stuff. I hope you keep going. But number two, how do you know this? How do you know it's for children? Why can't you just have a tube of Go-Gurt right now? And really, the answer is in the marketing. It's in the flavors. I mean, look at, there's Tropical Sunshine, Berry Blast, children food. When am I gonna see, acai bowl Go-Gurt? When am I gonna see Cabernet Sauvignon Go-Gurt? Okay, where's the 401k Go-Gurt? Okay. I'm so sorry. Unfortunately, I do have to run. I booked out an hour in my schedule to eat this, and I cannot do it standing up. Okay, goodbye.
Everyone give it up for Ian. I just love prop comedy. So anyways, our next and final performer of the night is my dearest and oldest friend and a titan of the Harvard stand-up scene, Please welcome to the stage the incomparable Isabel Levin.
You guys came out to have a good time tonight. So let's talk about the Holocaust. My aunt called me the other day and asked, given the recent rise in anti-Semitism, do you think there's going to be another Jewish genocide? I said, no. There aren't enough of us for another genocide. A very aggressive scavenger hunt, maybe. Not a genocide. I gotta say, though, Jews are the most confident people in the world. We've been kicked out of Germany and Spain and Russia and Poland and Italy and Little Italy and Ukraine and Hungary and the Czech Republic and Lithuania and Switzerland. Never have I heard a Jew say, maybe it's us. What could we be doing better? I think it's important we study the Holocaust so we learn from our mistakes and pick better hiding spots this time. I think we should hide somewhere no one would ever expect to find a Jew, like on a basketball team. The next time shit goes down, I will be taking my talents to the Celtics. The Nazis made gay people wear pink triangles on our chests, which sounds like a system gay people would come up with to fuck each other. Like if it's pointed up, you're a top. Germany recently instituted a Meet a Jew program to show German citizens the humanity of the Holocaust. I think it should be changed to the Meet a Cool Jew program, because I have certain cousins who would make people feel like Hitler was onto something. The Holocaust Museum is so sad. If I worked there, I would try to make it a little fun. In the display of shoes of people who died in the gas chamber, I would put one pair of Crocs. I have a t-shirt idea for the Holocaust Museum gift shop. It would say, I survived the Holocaust. And then in parentheses, museum. If you groaned at that, I'm about to talk about the Make-A-Wish Foundation. The Make-A-Wish Foundation is for children only, not adults. Because we all know adults wouldn't just want a picture with Dua Lipa. And Dua Lipa would have to be the bad guy when she didn't let the poor dying man suck her toes. Another popular celebrity for wishes is John Cena. John Cena has granted 650 wishes. There's no way 650 kids' first choice was meeting John Cena. He must be the organization's backup wish. A little girl's like, I want to be a princess for the day. And the organization's like, no can do. Here's John. He's a really good wrestler. A few years back, a little boy asked to cook with Ina Garten as his dying wish, which is the best coming out story I've ever heard. I wonder if kids know they're terminally ill before the organization gets involved. I wonder if the Make-A-Wish Foundation is like, what do you want more than anything in the world? And the kid's like, why do you ask? I think a lot of kids are selfish with their wishes. They get offered anything in the world, and most are like, I want to go to Disneyland. How about peace in the Middle East? And if the Make-A-Wish Foundation really can't get Israel and Palestine to get along, they could be like, here's John Cena. Thank you so much.
So that was Isabel Levin.
That was the last of our performers. Now we're going to be doing a little bit of rearranging as we get the seats ready for the panel.
Yes.
Um,
We have a script, sorry. As soon as the chairs are, sorry, I don't
Yeah,
want to be
please do it.
Okay. Well,
you want to do it together at the same
yeah,
time?
okay.
As soon-
Suggested,
oh.
sorry.
Suggested transitional text.
Now
we'll do a little rearranging on
of the
stage.
and transition. Sorry, this is very improvised.
This is so...
Anyways, we'd like to invite, as soon as everyone is ready,
Just okay.
I'd like to invite Professor Hisa Kuriyama and the other panelists back to the stage, but no rush. I don't know if you're ready yet. We'll just...
What was everyone's favorite part?
What's the deal with airline food, right? Okay, sorry. I think things look ready, right?
Seems pretty good.
Okay, so we'd like to welcome the panelists to the stage.
A round of applause for the panelists.
So we're in the panel discussion section, but let me begin by mentioning that I'll ask a few questions of our panelists, and I'll first introduce them, ask a few questions, but then there'll be opportunities for both you in the audience here live and those in the audience, our virtual audience, to ask questions. But both of the questions will be integrated together through using the Slido link provided on the screen. So I would urge you all to take advantage of that and think about your questions. And please feel free to ask. So we have four panelists. We have Clara and Isabel, whom we've already heard, are great students. My left here is Lynn Harris, who is the founder of Gold Comedy, a major sort of institution in comedy for women. And on my far left is Michelle Harrison. Sorry, Michelle Robinson. I knew that. Michelle Robinson, who's a professor at the University of North Carolina, and who has taught a course on the ethics of comedy, and also a Harvard graduate. Yes. So I thought I'd begin by maybe asking Lynn, as someone who's been in the comedy world for a long time, and your impressions, both from listening to our great comedians this evening, about the evolution of comedy, and particularly in terms of both the comedians who are participating in comedy, and also the nature of their comedy.
Okay, first of all, you all are so funny. I mean, I'm serious. You all are so funny. And I don't want to be the in my day, voice on the stage, but I'm gonna. Well, let's see. I went to Yale, which means I have a lot of Harvard jokes for another time. But so a few years ago, someone called me from Penn, and she said, "Hi, my name's Katie. I'm in one of the women's comedy groups at Penn." And I went, wait a minute, wait. One of the women's comedy groups at Penn. This, to me, when I was in college, we had comedy. And women did the comedy, but it was dudes running the comedy. And we didn't even really talk about non-binary, trans, it wasn't even a conversation. This was the late 80s. And I know I look amazing. And so to hear that you like Penn and so many other places, now it's not news to me, but the presence of the comedy here and the assumption that the comedy is going to be the way it's going to be is amazing. Not surprising to me because I know it now, but it is still amazing. And it is very affirming. And to me, like, this is the future and actually the present of comedy right here.
So let me begin with the students asking, maybe Isabel, given this tradition, were there role models that you thought of as you thought of pursuing comedy?
I mean, I grew up watching Joan Rivers mostly. Her 1984 set on the Ed Sullivan Show. I was like, that's who I want to be when I grow up. When I was like 13, I was a weird kid, which I feel like isn't surprising. But that was sort of who you could be. And I grew up very much in a family where a question at the dinner table was, what's one funny thing that happened to you today? Which inevitably ended up, turning into lying, and it became a creative exercise. But I remember seeing this clip and being like, this exercise is a thing people do as a discipline. So I think that was a big one. And then watching a lot of late night monologues of this like super structured setup punchline, it became, I don't know if you could tell, but I don't like performing at all. But when it turns into this like writing exercise and sort of a puzzle, that was really exciting to me.
Great. I'm not going to ask the same question to everybody, but I would like to ask that same question to Claire.
Yeah, I feel like my path to comedy and also like my role models in comedy were a little different. I didn't know that I wanted to like do comedy more meaningfully, I guess, until I got to college and I was kind of like thrust into it and I was like, oh, this is so fun. Oh my gosh, this is also fun. And this is like funny and like, it's nice to have people laugh at me, which is weird. But I think I like, in high school, my biggest, I guess, or who I thought was the most funny was Tig Notaro, who is this like amazing, like queer comic who touches on like a lot of like personal history and like stuff like that in a very like just hilarious way. And I remember I saw Tig perform when I was a senior, and I was like, it didn't like click until probably I got here, but there was like a kind of like recognition there where I was like, wow, this is like really cool, and I wish I could do it, but I probably will never do anything like that. But yeah, here I am now, I guess.
So both Isabel and Claire sort of have comedy that's a bit on the edge, sort of topics that one can talk about and topics one can't. And I know, Michelle, you've taught a course on the ethics of comedy, and I'm wondering about the kinds of topics that you cover when you discuss this question of ethics.
Oh, it's a whole semester, so we get to talk about a lot of comedians, including Tig Notaro, and I actually saw her Hello Again tour, I think it was last month, and it was amazing, it was fabulous. But we start off this semester with a comedian you're probably familiar with, Isabel, Anthony Jeselnik, who does perform this kind of dark humor. But we get to people, I mean, there's lots of folks besides Joan Rivers who tell these incredible jokes that go into incredibly dark places. And there are also comedians who occasionally you'll do it. But some people are just known for always having that dark edge, and Anthony Jeselnik is one of them.
So Lynn, you've been training comedians for a while. Has there been a change in the kind of training that people need, or the guidance that you provide?
Okay, so first of all, so Gold Comedy is just context and advertorial. Gold Comedy is the online comedy school and community and creative network and production studio that puts women and non-binary folks first. Goldcomedy.com, please check us out. We are fun. Honestly, I think to your point, I think the question that comes up more and more often is the question of what can we and what can we not talk about. And what's that? Oh, sorry. Did you have the same question? Yes, it's very common. And spoiler, the answer to that question is you can talk about anything you want. There are just two things there. It's how you talk about it. It's what's your point of view on that topic. And also, you can talk about anything you want, and people can react to it however they want. So I'm sure we can go into more of that, but I would say that's the thing that people ask about the most, and especially women, because more and more women are asking, how do I talk about my trauma? How do I talk about my mental health? How do I talk about sexual assault? How do I talk about the Holocaust? Seriously, how do I, where's the funny? I know I can sense it. I think I can do this. But let's figure it out to make sure I get it right for me and for the audience.
So there are a number of questions from the online audience that sort of follow up on that question. And so let me follow up with Isabel. Do you think there are any taboo subjects when developing a set?
No. Point blank, no. But I mean, I do think there are sort of like respectful ways, strangely, to joke about anything. I got in trouble last semester for telling a couple of those jokes on this campus, actually. And I stand by my material. I think it's fine. I'm a Jewish person. But it was like, I hurt somebody. I mean, that's what inspires somebody to file a complaint to the administration. And I don't want to do that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to pause on some of this material, and how do I fix it? And then I was watching, and Just Like That, which is the Sex and the City reboot, not to brag about my taste, but there was a scene where one guy, Stanford, brings a date to a dinner party, and it's revealed that date is a Holocaust denier. And then it's a throwaway joke, and the scene's over. And it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And I was like, why is that? And it was, I think, because this big issue of Holocaust denial was brought up so quickly, and it was such a throwaway. But it was like, okay, if we talk about this thing and we sit in it and we just wait, does that make it better? So I was like, okay, well, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's see if I can do, instead of a minute and a half about the Holocaust, let's see if we can make it 4.5. Does that make it a different exercise? And I think strangely, even though it's longer of this really sort of not okay material, I think that sort of made it more ethical for me.
Let me ask Clara a version of a similar question, but a little bit different. That is, this again from the audience. Actually, I don't know if it's from the audience online or here. How do you find the balance between using comedy to diffuse, that is, spread uncomfortable projects, or perhaps reclaiming topics that are weaponized or perpetuating harmful comedy?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I think that's what every comic kind of like is always wrestling with, or at least for me, like a lot of my comedy, as you've seen, is one very explicit, but is also like about me and like things that happen to me or like parts of my identity. And so, yeah, I'm always trying to, like both like predict almost, I guess, how an audience is gonna respond to how I frame, a joke about being Korean or like a joke about, XYZ part of my identity. But also I think at the same time, it's like something that I've more recently been like kind of grasping or like wrestling with is like when I leave the stage, like how do I feel? Because like a lot of it is like, oh, like I'm making a joke about my identity or about some trauma that I've experienced, and then it feels like I'm like making myself the punchline. And like it feels good when people laugh, like that's why I'm doing stuff. But then like, like that's why I'm here. But like when people don't laugh, that like feels worse. And then it's like this whole like cyclical of like, oh, like it's good and then it's like bad. And it's like, what does it mean to kind of like place this worth or this value on like making a joke out of like what I've experienced or what people have experienced? And so it's definitely something that like, I don't think I have a definitive like, this is how you do it, like type of thing. But I think it's a thing that like, based on talking with other comics who like talk more about like personal histories and stuff, it's something that like, it's just a constantly like turning wheel in your mind that you're just always trying to like, like understand, and it's always changing, but yeah.
Great. Michelle, I promise I'm not just going to ask you about ethics, but I do have a question from the audience about who would be an example of a strongly ethical comedian?
Actually, I think I can kind of respond to what Claire said and answer that too. So there's a comedian named Carmen Esposito who did a piece that she calls, the title is Rape Jokes. It's free online on her website. And part of it kind of confronts the fact that while she was in college, she learned to talk about her sexual assault as if it were a joke. And the piece is about learning to understand, or how she came to terms with, many of the things she'd been taught about gender, or taught about identity, taught about her experience of sexuality, or what she was supposed to want and desire, and that included seeing sexual assault as a joke. So she's a comedian who takes an opportunity for free for an audience to unpack and confront some of those things for us, and deal with the fact that the laughter that you encounter is pleasurable, but that doesn't mean that you are not making yourself the butt of the joke. So I think it's just a really impressive example of a comedian who thinks seriously about her legacy as doing ethical work.
And epilogue to that, the first name that popped into my head when you asked this question, I was like, Cameron Esposito. And then you said it, and that's because, for all the reasons, but then most recently, one of our members wrote an article for our website about her own sexual assault, how she reacted with the jokey, how she then saw rape jokes, head exploded, stuff happened at college, et cetera, et cetera. Now she does stand-up. She's starting to integrate all this stuff, and she wrote this incredible essay about it, which we tweeted, and then Cameron Esposito, being insanely ethical and wonderful, responded in such a nice way and said, Caitlin, thank you so much for writing this. I'm sending you strength and love, because she is that nice and wonderful and really, not just nice, but really cares about what she's putting out there and cares when people receive it and then put it back out. So she really has created something real. She's amazing. Cameron Esposito.
So obviously, as Claire mentioned, one of your objectives in performing is to make people laugh, right? But I'd like to ask, I guess maybe both Isabel and Claire, beyond that, or in addition to that, what you would consider to be a successful performance. That is, what would make you feel that you've done something successful? Your performance was successful.
I mean, I wish I had a better answer for you than to make people laugh. I mean, I think I do the kind of comedy I do because it's what comes naturally. It's when I sit down with my notebook, that's what comes out. I mean, if this were really sort of a calculated thing of like what's going to get the best reaction. I wish I could write different comedy because I think people might like it better. But that's what I've got. So I think sort of, given sort of the content of my head, this is sort of how I can maximize a reaction.
Yeah, I think similarly, like the goal of every stand-up comic is to, as I just said, like, is to make people laugh. But I think also like, I guess more on the note of comedy written and performed about like personal things and et cetera. Like a big thing in comedy, or a big thing that I was taught when I first started doing comedy when I was a freshman was like, when you're like, good comedy is when you're never punching down, but you're always punching up. So like, you never want to like punch down on a group that's lower than you. Take that how you will. But like, you always want to like punch up to the oppressor, like the system that's oppressing you, or like what you're kind of like confronting as like in the most broad sense, the man, I guess. And I think that's like something that, yeah, I've like very much valued in like how I present my comedy, I guess. And I guess like regardless of how well a set goes in front of any given audience, I'm like more focused on like the writing and like if I'm maintaining that kind of like philosophy, I guess.
Great. There are a number of questions. Maybe I'll ask Lynn first, and maybe others will want to chime in. There are several questions about this question of how does one learn to be funny, or is one born funny? And maybe Lynn, since you've trained people, I'll ask you first to comment on that.
Everyone can be funnier.
That's so diplomatic.
This is kind of boring but true. Sure, there are people who bring a certain kind of natural perspective or a natural something to the thing, but what really is the magic is actually hard work. It's just practice. A lot of the comedians who I would say are possibly, not as like, I don't know, I can't actually mathematically support this, but my observation is there are many comedians who might not be, I don't know, as just kind of naturally funny off stage, who are so funny on stage because they work so hard and they have practiced so hard and they have done this over and over and over. And that's one reason, and there are people who are naturally hilarious, who are great at a lot of things, but may not ever succeed, maybe they're not trying, in being stand-ups because they're not willing to do the hard work it takes to do stand-up or other kinds of comedy. It's work, it's an art form, and it's work. And that's why I'm just blown away by you all. And again, it's not like, again, we had comedy in college and everyone worked really hard at it. That's not new. But what's very impressive to me about you all is, especially in stand-up, it's relatively new that there's stand-up scenes in college. That was not true. We had lots of a cappella. And there was improv and some sketch, but no one was doing stand-up except for the bits that I started doing stand-up with the bits. I was in an a cappella group, and the bits that I did in between was sort of how I figured out that I like stand-up. Fascinating backstory, I know. But my point is, you all have clearly worked hard at stand-up, and you already, and so you have so many reps in already that most people don't have at this age. We also work with teenagers, so yes, like young teenagers, but it's more rare. And so you all have not only gotten the practice in, but you've gotten enough practice in to understand your own personas and your style, and like you're telling jokes that only you could tell, which is sort of the holy grail. And that comes from, I'm sure you're all very gifted, and obviously you've worked hard. And it really, honestly, I really think that's the magic is the work.
Mm-hmm. I have a number of questions for Michelle, but let me pick this one about how teaching about comedy has changed over time, and whether things like the Me Too movement have affected comedy. The social movements like the Black Lives Matter affect comedy, that kind of thing.
So I can talk a little bit about what scholars have done. There were a couple of cornerstone books about women in comedy, but what I see more now is that comedians that people were writing about, say 20 years ago, like Margaret Cho, people can write about them now, following them through an entire career. So there are women who they've had like kind of prominent careers, people like Wanda Sykes, who've done multiple television shows, who've had different opportunities to present themselves and even to produce themselves, and following up to the present. So the more recent works actually can really dig in to a lot of how things have changed over time, and the power that women comedians have had. But that also means there's still a focus on an earlier generation of comedians because there's that body of work to examine. So I haven't seen too much comedy about non-binary comedians and trans comedians. And I think that's still a place where scholars need to present, pay a lot more attention. I think it's still just very recent that we've had this expansion of avenues with which we can confront comedy. So, 20 years ago, there was still you probably know, Lynn, about Eddie Brill So David Letterman had a gatekeeper that Jason Zinnemann, who is the comedy critic at the New York Times, has written about, who really determined who would perform late night sets. And that's really what structured and created our taste for comedy and helped us understand what comedy was. But his tastes were prejudicial towards women. So understanding what was American stand-up comedy was understanding men's stand-up comedy. And since now we have YouTube and there's TikTok and there's so many more avenues for people to introduce us to their comedy, we're getting people like Reggie Watts. We're getting people that we might not have seen before. Or Cameron Esposito, I just talked about her making her comedy available to us on the internet. And so I think that's really going to change the scholarship now that this generation is available for us to look at and has put enough work out there for us to study in more detail.
The only difference, 100% true, that like the access and who we see it is so different, even way before the pandemic. I mean, Cameron Esposito, all that stuff was not just a pandemic thing. The thing we need to change is people, especially women and all the new folks, the diverse folks, need to get paid for all that.
Yeah.
For putting other stuff out there. That's not your problem. I'm not correcting you. I'm saying that.
I'll just add a little bit to that. It's fascinating because when I ask students who have been exposed to a lot of this more recent comedy, they still prefer the Bill Burrs, they still prefer the Seinfelds and the Dave Chappelle, individuals who are excellent comedians, but the residue of that imprint that a tastemaker made on the comedy landscape is still very firmly in place.
I have a question for Claire and Isabel, and I confess I don't know this zine, but Claire and Isabel, in addition to stand-up, you also write for the humor zine Peanut Kid. Do different mediums allow you to express comedy differently?
Yes, we do. To pub our website, you can go to peanutkidmag.com. We write for a comedy zine that was started by Harvard undergrads, I think about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. It's been Claire's confirming. And yeah, I think I am someone who dips my hands and feet into many different comedy buckets. Sorry for painting that image. But I started doing comedy because I very spontaneously auditioned for an improv group, and then it spiraled into, someone was like, come to a stand-up meeting. I was like, okay. And someone was like, this is what sketch is. I was like, okay. And someone was like, this is what satire is. I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds cool. And yeah, I think for me, there's always a different balance of how I want to express certain things. So I think sketch is a more imaginative avenue for my comedy. When I think the way I write stand up is I have a list of premises in my notes app, and it's just things throughout the day that I find funny, or I'm like, oh, that could be a joke later. And sometimes a premise will like work better as a stand-up set, and I'll try to write it as stand-up, and then I'll be like, no, that sounds horrible, and is too like visual, or too many people are involved. And then I'm like, okay, then that's better as a sketch, and then I try to write it as a sketch. And then improv is a whole other animal that I think is just like about being fun and goofy and like thinking very quickly, which helps with like writing in general. But yeah, I think it is very true that I for comedy for me is like very like spread out across different platforms, including Peanut Kid.
I'm less multi-talented. I don't write across disciplines for the most part. But I mean, I think what sort of to your point about the sort of like newer generation of stand-up, I mean, I think there's been, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like there's been a lot of discussion of like, is this even really stand-up? If we think of like a Nanette, for example, of like, when is this a TED Talk? When is this a one-man show? Of like, there are all of these sort of subgenres within sort of this broader umbrella of stand-up. And I think there's this moment of, you know, what actually is the discipline of like, is the goal to actually make you laugh right now? Or is it some sort of, you know, coalition building? And I think there have been moments historically, like Seth Meyers talked about clapter, of like when you're saying, you know, something that people agree with politically and they're showing support. And that's not really, you know, comedy, it's sort of a speech. But I think there's this moment of like, maybe that still is comedy, and that the sort of like disparaging tone that was sort of discussed previously is maybe now dissipating. So, I mean, I think there, even sort of within stand-up, there might be sort of multiple genres emerging.
There are, maybe I'll preserve this to the end. There's a question about the discipline of stand-up comedy, and there's a question for you, Michelle, about, first of all, when stand-up comedy became an academic discipline.
I think that's difficult to say.
I think tonight.
Yeah, tonight, right. Tonight. I mean, I think it's difficult to say. There's some individuals who were kind of so phenomenally important in the 20th century that people must have been doing biographical work on them before it might have been considered, you know, stand-up comedy studies or humor studies in particular. I'm looking to someone in the audience if he wants to help me with that. What would you say? Well, yeah, I mean, people still treat that as a classic, yeah, Objection in America. But there is biographical work of, you know, on folks from the 50s onwards. But that is... It was very hard to get tenure. Yeah, right.
Comedy.
I mean, and I guess, yeah, I guess it means that, you know, scholarly examinations, academic examinations for lay people who are just really interested in the subject. There's, I guess, a variety of ways that people do write about stand-up now because it is such a popular art form. So Objection in America is like 1990 something, maybe? Yeah, so in the 1990s, and I don't know whether he got tenure through writing that book, so it might have been someone who already had tenure and could experiment in ways they wanted to.
Stand-up comedy itself is evolving. What maybe Lynn, if you could comment on what do you see the future, basically the direction in which it's evolving? What would you think as the future of stand-up comedy?
Keep playing with this. Okay. I agree that you know where it's going is this kind of democratized, multiple genres that we haven't even, that we don't have names for yet. It will be piped directly into our heads probably at some point. We were talking about these crazy meetings you've gone to with these, you know, Oculus 9 goggles where you're like at a stand-up club, but you're in your house, and it's and there's still a 2-drink minimum, which is weird. But I do think it's inevitable. There's a ton that has to be worked out. Stand-up is still very gate-kept. It feels democratized. It is democratized in exactly the way you described, at the level of just putting your stuff out there. And the tastes are changing, and I don't mean taste, I mean like the demand. Viacom, it was Viacom, but they did a study a couple years ago that said that 79% of their viewers want more diverse people on their screens. Just more diverse stuff, and that the demand is outpacing the supply. And that was only a couple years ago. Things have changed even since then. So I do think that the demand for what we want is changing. I do think the supply of comedians who are not straight white dudes is changing. The thing that has to change is the way the business is run and the way it's gate kept, and the way that still, as much as we can delight and rejoice in all the things that are changing, it still sucks to be a female comic on the road. It often sucks to be like the one or two people who identify as female in your improv team, where you have to say yes and to everything. You still get paid less for working 3 times as hard. So, it's trending in the right direction, and the creativity is bananas. And the genius that is happening is bananas, and the business and the industry just needs to catch up.
Sort of to continue that point of the sort of gatekeeping, sort of at the bottom of the barrel level of comedy at which I reside, in the basements of Boston bars, it's very much an issue of, there's only a certain kind of person that can tell a particular joke. Of if I'm to go into one of those rooms in a sort of more femme-presenting way, I have real trouble doing observational humor. It just doesn't go over very well. So there's an issue of like how you present and the kind of material that you can actually do, and the people that actually get booked on these kinds of shows are often not super feminine women. So like even sort of within the category of women, there's discrimination. So that's certainly an issue that exists in that world.
Yeah, I mean, that is a much more nuanced point than what I'm about to say. But it's amazing to me that, I live in Brooklyn now, and all over New York City, there are so many excellent open mics where they will be nice to you, and there are so many shows and mics and just rooms that are friendly and diverse, and where nary a boring straight white dude is seen. And at the same time, I hear just as often, I hear the same stuff that happened to me, and not just me, everybody, where you were the only woman on the lineup, and every time they would introduce you as like it was and then they'd be like, and now we got a lady coming to the stage, and then all of a sudden, so first of all, okay, side note, you're doing a bad job as an MC. I don't care if you're not a feminist. I care, but I don't care. You're not doing your job well right now, because your job is to get the crowd just as excited and pumped for every single comic. So you suck at your job. And then you go up as the only female-identified, female-presenting person in the room, and all of a sudden, you don't have to just be funny for 8 minutes. You have to prove that women are funny in 8 minutes. And that never works. And so that was in the 80s and the 90s. And as often as I hear about these awesome rooms and on Zoom and otherwise that are happening now, which they're so common and almost the norm, I almost as often hear, guys, I was the only woman on the lineup. Still now, who does that? Who does that lineup? How is that even possible? So your point is way more nuanced, but even just at that also just like fundamental level, we still have work to do.
Claire, did you want to say something on this point? I mean,
Yeah, sure. I mean, similar to Isabel, I've frequented a Boston open mic in a basement or a show, and on Lynn's point about like being the only woman on a lineup, like that has happened to me, and it's like, okay, but yeah, I mean, it's just something that like almost feels like it's sad, but it feels like inevitable that that's just like how it is. But I do think that like things are changing, and like taste, as Lynn was also talking about, is definitely changing. Like I think the most meaningful like comedy on TV for me is like the comedy that isn't just like joke after joke. Like, I mean, I love Seinfeld, but like, you know, I think what really strikes a deeper chord for me is like a show like Pen 15, which like my best friend and I, we like rewatched the last episode and like cried for like 7 hours straight, because it is so funny and so creative and so genius and has these amazing like characters that are so developed and is so funny, and at the same time also makes you cry like so much. And that's like what strikes a chord with me and like my friends, as opposed to like, you know, this like classic, like, you know, what was like known as like the best comedy on TV like 20 years ago. So I just think that like we have to put the work in, but like things are changing because like taste is changing, and like as we were talking about, like, you know, TikTok and like everything is just so like more like mass media, like everything's more accessible if you have a phone and social media.
So related to that, maybe Michelle, if you comment on this question, which is, has social media changed comedy? Has one platform been more influential than others?
Did you want to add something then to the last statement?
Okay, I was going to add a little Cameron Esposito moment. I'm sorry, thank you. I was just going to add to what you were saying that, and also I'm obsessed with Cameron Esposito. She has said for a long time that actually more diverse, whatever you want to call it, comedy is better for straight white dudes also. It's better for all of us. Not just because, what's the expression where like the rising tide raises all ships, but also if you're in a lineup with like 4 similar straight white guys, and then there's like one woman or someone who's not, like you guys all kind of blend together, but you're gonna stand out more. You're gonna stand out more if you're the only, like, or one of the only, you know, regular or whatever you want to call it, straight white guys in a set. I mean, in a lineup. So it's better for everyone. People will remember you instead of just in a sea of other people like you. So it's better for everybody. Cameron Esposito. Gold comedy. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
We're really doing a promo for her tonight, right? So I think the question about the varieties of avenues for presenting comedy, is that really enriching? Is that basically the
specific question was about social media? But
I think, you know, kind of going back to an earlier point, right? There's an issue of critical mass, first of all. So in a lineup, how many women identifying or female presenting people need to be there so that the onus isn't on one person to show that all women are funny, is still an issue when it comes to road comics. For instance, and there's like a great documentary called Road Comics that was produced partially by Susan Sizer, who's an anthropologist at Indiana, and I think the dangers that that non-white men road comics face continues to be an issue, but particularly for women comics, trans comics who are out on the road. It's a totally different experience, and the numbers are very, very small. And we might have a kind of distorted impression of that based on who has Netflix specials. There really is a smaller proportion out there on the road. And I think this is all coming down to who is going to get paid to create comedy. And until these different venues are paying comedians, particularly women comedians, not much has changed. To give away all your comedy, that hard work for free, people deserve to be paid for it. And for me, it's important that we can measure change in that way.
This just a personal question from based on ignorance. Do actually any of you who perform think about becoming writers as opposed to performers? That is, writers for comedy shows, or is that something that people who train to become performers ever consider, or are writers a totally different genre of people?
Are you asking in general, or are you asking
first I'm asking whether that's something that you ever considered, right? Or whether performing was something that was special and you really wanted to do.
I mean, as I've mentioned, I don't like this at all. I have terrible stage fright. I don't like it. So I think if I could ever write for other people, that would be the dream. But nobody's telling my jokes for me, so I'm going to do it. And I mean, I think there are different kinds of writing that you can go into. You can go into the sort of more, text-based of like literary magazines. Those sort of seldom pay enough to be a career, but that's certainly an avenue that you can take. Or there's the late night room, which is very sort of set up punchline joke based. Or there are sitcoms, which are more story based. Or there's playwriting. So there are a ton of different places that can go there. You can copy edit. So there's really a lot of places it can go. And I think it's absolutely an aspiration of a lot of people who do stand up to get into writers' rooms. It's sometimes a way to get your writing seen. So it's sort of a like self-marketing tool too.
Yeah, ditto to everything Isabel said. I don't know. I don't want to carry this on too long, but yeah, I think a lot of stand-ups that I'm friends with are like interested in writing for TV or writing comedy in some form because it is just like stand-up without performing it. I think for me, I used to have terrible stage fright up until maybe my senior year of high school, and it was like it haunted me, and I was very quiet, and I had no friends. But it's just a side note. But I think now I do like performing sometimes. Sometimes I don't like it, but I think that's performing stand-up is something that I like hope to keep doing for as long as I can.
Claire, when we spoke, not Claire, sorry, Isabel, when we spoke in preparation for this panel, one thing that you emphasized was this notion of empathy in the thinking about comedy. I wonder if you could speak a little bit more about that.
Sure. I mean, I think an example that stands out was one of the most recent times I super bombed. And I was talking about being committed to a psych ward, not to brag. I'm doing fine now, don't worry. But I started talking, and I was like, oh, you feel bad for me. Like, this is a problem. To the point where, like, nobody was going to laugh about it. Like, it was just pin drop silence. I was like, okay. So I think there's this issue of, like, how do you not make people feel bad for you? And I think it's really, really interwoven with gender in that I think historically, I mean, completely anecdotal. I mean, I know they're real social scientists here. But when I've seen that, particularly when femme-presenting people talk about things that are hard for them, there's this initial impulse of like, oh, I'm so sorry for you, rather than I'm sort of willing to laugh at you because you're fine. So, I mean, I think the like inability to believe male suffering is strangely conducive to laughing at them, or when they're talking about some of these topics. So I think sort of masculinity is an advantage in that space. So I think a degree of empathy is crucial, unless like an Anthony Jeselnik, for example, of like you don't believe he's a good person, and that's the premise, and that's fine. But I also think there's I think there's a real piece of like I believe fundamentally that this is a decent human being that makes the show go on. But yes, I found that empathy has both been helpful, but also really like not allowed me to talk about certain things because it makes people too sad, which is nice of them, but also I want them to laugh.
Claire, so at least tonight, part of your humor sort of revolves around your Korean American identity.
Yes. Woo! Thank you. It's a win.
And I'm wondering whether you perform differently with a Korean American audience.
Oh yeah, definitely. I did a show last summer that was a predominantly like Asian American crowd, and it was really fun because I've never done that. And I think like I guess not on the point of like empathy specifically, but just of like collective like understanding of like certain things that people just won't understand you all can understand what it's like for a baby to crawl towards objects, but it's like different to like feel like, oh, this like really deeply resonates with me. So it's like more fun to do, I guess, like Korean American identity-based comedy with them. But it's also something that like I just like doing regardless of who's in the room. And I think, I do try to like please a crowd and cater to a crowd. But I think also part of it is like, regardless of who's there, I want to do the jokes that I want to do.
Maybe Lynn, you're well situated to answer this question. There's a question about whether we need a new type of live comedy spaces, maybe friendlier to all. And the other somewhat simple question, and I know you're a New Yorker now, but I live in Boston and want to go to comedy shows and venues that are treating comics well and recruiting female stand-ups. Are there any places in Boston that I should go to?
On the second one, I would defer to you folks, because things have changed, certainly since I was here doing stand-up. But the first question was, do we need? Yes, and I think live venues are evolving in that direction. There's always going to be rooms that, stereotypically whatever cater to tourists and whatever that brings with it. But I think even that's going to change. When I was doing doing stand-up in New York. There was definitely the clubs, we called them, and then there was the alt comedy. And the clubs were like in Midtown or Upper West Side, whatever. And the alt spaces were Lower East Side, whatever. And those buildings still, well, actually no, there's really no alt scene, but not there is, but not the style of comedy. There's much less of a distinction between whatever alt was and mainstream comedy. And the alt creativity has kind of infused, at least in New York City, the mainstream style. So you don't have to go downtown or wherever it is to see interesting, new, creative, not just super middle of the road comedy. And so in that sense, I think the rooms are changing, and there's just a much more of an equalizing of like just the kind of creativity that you're going to see anywhere in town, with exceptions. But I think that has definitely happened. And in terms of where you can just get a spot, or where you can just go to a mic that probably won't destroy you. There are I was saying before, the mics and just informal rooms in the backs of bars and all of those things, they're everywhere, and everyone knows which ones are which. And we actually are just we're doing like a big survey and a feature now at Gold now that we can get back out there. Where do we do our own mics online, but where can people go? Where can we send our femme presenting and trans folks and folks where they're safe with us? Where are we going to send them now? And so we're compiling lists of places and cities all over the country, and there are tons. So and I really do think that's nothing. It's not perfect, but I really do think that part, sort of like with social. That's the live version of social, where there is a friendliness and accessibility that is here to stay.
Great. I think we're just at time, so I'd like to thank Lynn and Isabel and Claire and Michelle for a wonderful panel, and if everybody could join me in thanking them. So, where else would you be? Where else would people be able to watch you perform? Just are there campus events that?
Yeah. If you're on campus, both HC Sucks and the Female Comedy Collective have stand-up shows pretty regularly. I'm on Instagram. I don't want to plug my Instagram, but I'm ClaireBear219 on Instagram, and that's how you can find me. But yeah, I feel like there are a lot of shows on campus, and we try to publicize them pretty actively.
Look, HC Sucks' Instagram.
Oh, HC Sucks' Instagram is HC Sucks, and oh yeah, HC. Let me spell it. HCSUCS. Yes. You can follow us on Instagram.
Maybe I'll ask Nadine and Dylan and Mireya. Is Ian still here? Anyway, you all stand up and take a bow. Sorry, again. So just in closing, I'd just like to remind you that the program on gender and comedy continues tomorrow morning here at 9:30 in the Canal Fall Center, and online in Zoom and YouTube. So there's still places, and we definitely encourage you to join us there as well. It'll be a series of really academic but very interesting panels. So thank you all for coming tonight.